My name is Scott Payne. I served in the FBI for 23 years as an undercover agent. I infiltrated biker gangs, the KKK, and America's neo-Nazis. And this is everything I'm authorized to tell you. For protection and safety, I got me. I don't have a gun. You know, I'm pretty sure I wasn't even wired that night because me personally, I don't like to be wired in the beginning. I mean, if we would have started fighting, it's just been me fighting, you know. Hopefully a cover team can hear me. But for the outlaw case, it was basically me for the 2 years. It was basically me, the case agent, FBI case agent, who was a friend of mine, Massachusetts State Trooper, task force officer, and it was a Brockton PD detective. And we had a DEA counterpart. In the outlaws case, there wasn't a part where I was going to get taken down. But there were several times during that case I did get stopped by law enforcement as our team's surveilling me. And I'm getting questioned with outlaws in my car, and I'm getting browbeat by a state trooper, and I've got to stay in roll and hopefully not go to jail, you know, kind of thing. So if that would have happened on a case like that, I'd just go to jail. I wouldn't break cover. I'd let somebody come bail me out, and we'll figure it out after that. But hell, it might even bolster my reputation with the outlaws, you know. Lead tactic, the principal tactical instructor for the division forever. I've been a firearms instructor. I can't go out there and tell them what they're doing wrong. I can't go out there and make them better. We were all worried about my safety. We had quick response teams, you know, like, but the bottom line is if I'm in the middle of 100 acres and the crap hits the fan, what are you going to do for me other than avenge my death unless I take care of it on my own? So, you know, that's kind of that undercover mentality. If you're only going in because you're expecting 3 SWAT teams and HRT to be there for you, you probably shouldn't go in.
Imagine walking into a room where everyone around you wants to kill you if they knew who you really were. No badge, no gun, no backup close enough to matter. That's not a movie scene. That's an average night for an undercover FBI agent. For 23 years, Scott Payne didn't just investigate America's most violent extremist groups. He lived inside them. Biker gangs, neo-Nazis, domestic terror cells. And here's the part most people don't understand. When things go wrong out there, help doesn't rush in. If you're deep in the woods, or locked inside a clubhouse, or surrounded by men who don't trust you, you're on your own. Every laugh has to be real. Every story has to be airtight. And every second, you're asking yourself one question. Did I just say the wrong thing? What you're about to watch isn't theory or training manuals or Hollywood nonsense. It's survival, told by someone who had to earn trust from people who specialize in exposing liars. This is how FBI undercover work actually happens, when your life depends on staying believable.
There was an opportunity to do the Outlaws Motorcycle Club in Massachusetts, out of the Boston office. My game plan was to just go in cold. I think I went into the Outlaws case around July of 2005. Taunton, Massachusetts was what we were going after. They had pretty good intelligence. I'm like, hey, you know, what do you know? And they were like, they showed me, hey, this guy right here, he loves to be surrounded by big guys. He loves to be the center of attention. So they had that down. And I'm like, okay, cool. That lets me know, all right, I can be me. We knew that they frequented a strip club. And for those that don't know, in the biker world, you have a mandatory meeting every week, and that's called church. And depending on the club and the chapter, sometimes that's where you talk about your criminal activity. You know, you cut your phones off, airplane mode, leave them outside, go inside, you know, and that's all ways to thwart being infiltrated, to thwart law enforcement detection. I kind of made some stops at that bar when they weren't there, and you know, kind of got to know the crowd a little bit. And then one night, when we're ready to swing for the fences, the surveillance is like, hey, they're leaving, they're on their way there. I'm already at the bar. I'm like, cool. I had asked them, I'm like, hey, can they wear their colors in the bar? And they're like, no, we don't believe they can wear them in the bar. And I go, oh, well, that's good. That's an advantage for me, because now I'm just a tattooed dude drinking, staring at half-dressed women, listening to rock and roll, and so was that guy. But that part of the intelligence was wrong. So I'm in there, and I'm on one side of the bar, and here comes about, I don't know, 12, 13 outlaws, all with their colors on, and they take the whole back section of the bar. Well, that changes any kind of approach for me, right? I mean, what do? Do you walk up and go, hey, especially this accent in Massachusetts? Come on. But you walk up and go, hey, you boys like to ride? I'm probably getting smacked at the minimum, right? You know? So I just started being me, trying to ingratiate, just getting to know some of the outlaws, just shooting the shit, guys at a bar. And then they had somebody kind of check me out in the bathroom. That was a little weird. This big jack dude named Scott Town, who I got to befriend and know very, very well through that case. Door swings open, and here he is, barrel-chested, big muscles, and then I see him eyeballing me and start to walk up. So for that split second, I'm thinking, I'm getting jacked. He's probably gonna slam me or something. You know, I'm just ready, preparing for anything. Well, he starts questioning me about where I've been, this, that, and the other. Don't bluff, because I did throw out some stuff. McAllen, Texas. He'd been to Brownsville. Greenville, South Carolina. He'd been to Spartanburg. He knew all the places I was talking. So had I been bluffing and not knowing what I was talking about, I probably could have blown it right then and there. For protection and safety, I got me. I don't have a gun. You know, I'm pretty sure I wasn't even wired that night, because me personally, I don't like to be wired in the beginning. I mean, if we would have started fighting, it's just been me fighting, you know. Hopefully a cover team can hear me. You should have a cover team on you if you're out. A cover team would be like my case team, but they're a response team. You might have multiple response teams and they may do shifts, but for the outlaw case, it was basically me for the 2 years. It was basically me, the case agent, FBI case agent, who was a friend of mine, Massachusetts State Trooper, task force officer, and it was a Brockton PD detective. And we had a DEA counterpart, but for the most part, it was those two task force officers, the agent and me. Sometimes gaining trust from somebody takes a long time, but I just started hanging. And that night, that first night I bumped them, they invited me to their Northeast Regional meet, which was called the Lobster Fest. I made sure I came back for that and started meeting more people. And I was just hanging around, you know. But, you know, what is a country guy doing in Massachusetts? I'm gonna have to have a reason that's believable. I said I was a site survey specialist because I grew up landscaping, and I started looking for something that I felt comfortable talking about and being able to do for a living. But eventually I start letting it be known that I'm not just a legit businessman. I do some criminal activity too. And then I started doing some things. What it turned in for them was, in the beginning, they would report vehicles stolen. They would get their own insurance money. I would buy those vehicles off of them at a stolen price. And what they believed is that I was moving them to Mexico. And then we start gaining more trust because we're hanging more and they're learning more about me and I'm learning more about them. And then it becomes, hey, we just carjacked somebody. So now they're saying, Tex, we got a hot car. We need to get rid of it. I'm like, okay, I'll get rid of it. So take that one. I started dropping breadcrumbs about the fact that I did used to be in the dope game. And I did have contacts in the cartel, but I got out of it because some of my boys got locked up and the heat was getting too close. In the Outlaws case, there wasn't a part where I was going to get taken down, but there were several times during that case I did get stopped by law enforcement as our team's surveilling me, and I'm getting questioned with outlaws in my car, and I'm getting browbeat by a state trooper, and I've got to stay in roll and hopefully not go to jail, you know, kind of thing. So if that would have happened on a case like that, I'd just go to jail. I wouldn't break cover. I'd let somebody come bail me out and we'll figure it out after that. But hell, it might even bolster my reputation with the outlaws, you know. The biggest lick we came as a year and a half into the case. I'd laid out that I was actually involved in the drug game, and we did a deal where we had a load of dope transferred to another vehicle. So we ended up doing 40 kilos of real cocaine, 1,000 pounds of real weed. What they thought was it was a drug crew selling it to another drug crew, and they got paid for helping protect it. But the big issue in that case that most people like to talk about is the night before the op was supposed to happen, Joe Doggs, who was the president of the Taunton chapter, said, hey man, I want you to come over to the clubhouse. They were having church, that meeting I was talking about. And Clothesline, the enforcer, who's supposed to be my good buddy, says, hey Tex, you got a minute? And I said, yeah. I'd been in that clubhouse umpteen times, man. Who knows how many. There's only one door I'd never been in, and that's the door he opened. And we went down a tight stairwell to a basement but I'm being generous when I say basement. Northeastern home, split level, more like a cellar. You know, I couldn't stand up straight. I mean, I'm 6'4", and I could probably touch the wall on both sides. Well, they brandished their weapons, and he's got me down there, and I just walking down into that dark, tight area, one outlaw in front of me, one behind me, I'm like, something's not good, man. This is not good. And everything starts slowing down in your head because you're having an adrenaline dump. He walks me down there and he says, hey, there's a lot of going on. It's my job to protect my brothers. I need you to take all your clothes off. I need you to write down your full name, your address, your kids' names, your wife's name. And I start gold bricks at that point. I'm like, oh, hell. Because being stripped in a basement at gunpoint is not a big deal if you're not wired. You're just naked. It's uncomfortable. It's cold. When you're wired, it's a big deal. And I went to write my name down, Scott Calloway, and I couldn't remember my middle name. It's because I was having an adrenaline dump. I couldn't remember nothing. Everything I'm having the auditory exclusion. Everything's going woof, woof, real slow. You can feel your heart beating. Your hamstrings get rubbery. And I was trying to remember. I was going Scott Calloway, Scott Calloway, Scott Joseph Calloway, and I'm like, nope, that wasn't my middle name. That was another alias. And I'm just going through this Rolodex in my mind. And then I do something that we train. I had no idea I did it though. And it's basically a distraction technique, but it's also me trying to get information. Must have been my subconscious doing it, right? And I say, what else do you need? And he says, what? And I'm like, my name and what else? Then I hear them yell up to a probate and say, hey, what else do you need for that website? So now I'm doing active listening. I'm like, oh, okay. I'm gathering intel. I'm like, okay, they're going to Google search me. Back then, there was a huge thing called whosarat.com. You can go on that. Anybody that was like locals that get popped, if they can ID the narc and put a picture, they put it on whosarat.com. I took my jacket, my shirt off. I took my boots off, and I dropped my pants and underwear down around my ankles. And I did remember my middle name finally, and I wrote that down. But the whole time, I'm doing things that we teach. I'm like, I'm talking. I'm looking at clothesline, and I'm like, I didn't say it, but my eyes were saying, tell me everything's going to be okay. What the hell's going on? I looked for plastic. If I'd have seen plastic on the floor, I probably would have tried to fight my way out of it. But, I mean, what the hell could I have done? I don't care how tough you are. 13 outlaws, you're downstairs. You got to get upstairs, get out the door.
This is the moment every undercover agent thinks about, the one you train for, but secretly hope never comes. Because when trust finally gets tested, it doesn't happen politely. It happens fast. It happens in tight spaces, and it happens when you don't control the room anymore. Picture it, a narrow basement, low ceiling and no exits. Men you've laughed with now standing between you and the stairs. Weapons out, voices calm but deadly serious. At this point, there's no acting your way out, no clever lines, no heroic moves. Your body betrays you before your mind does. Your heart starts pounding, your hearing fades, and time stretches, every second feeling heavier than the last. And here's the brutal truth. If they decide you're law enforcement, this doesn't end with questions. It ends right there, so the job becomes simple. Slow everything down, stay human, and never let panic speak for you. Because in that basement, survival doesn't depend on strength. It depends on control. And sometimes, the smallest details, a remembered name, a believable reaction, or a single moment of hesitation are the only things standing between walking back upstairs and never walking out at all.
I'm talking. But in his look, he's kind of looking back, and he says, at one point he tells me, he goes, trust me, man, if somebody accused me of being a Fed, I'd smash him in the mouth. And I looked at him and I said, I'm not happy. That was true. I was not happy. And he said, I wouldn't be either. So I think we're done. Then he grabs a piece of clothing and he says, hey, I'm not going to find anything in here I don't want to, right? Like some naked pictures of my old lady. And he laughs. He goes, my laugh is like this. Because, without giving too much away, there was something in that piece of clothing. And he starts needing it. He starts looking at it. And he's going over this whole piece of clothing. And he looks right at it, but doesn't see it. And I pass. And we immediately go back into business. Now, several things to be learned from that. A lot of people ask me, what would you have said if he would have found it? And to this day, I remember it like it was yesterday. I got 2 responses. One would have been to buy myself some time. If he'd have said, what is this? I would have said, I don't know, some naked pictures of your old lady, because he already threw that bone. The only other line I had was, the gig is up. I'm an undercover FBI agent. I can walk out of here and we can see each other in court, or all hell's going to break loose. However, that would have been a bluff on my part, because to my knowledge, every time I was in that clubhouse, the cover team really couldn't hear me. That night when I turned in my equipment to the case team, what I found out was Sergeant Higginbottom, Higgy, was the Massachusetts State Trooper, and Joe was the Brockton police guy. That first exchange between me and Joe Doggs at the door made their spidey senses go off. Or if you're me and you're a believer, it's the Holy Spirit talking to you, divine intervention. What Higgy and Joe did is they suited up, vests and everything, ready to respond. But because they knew how fortified that door was on the clubhouse, the cinder block wall around it, their plan was to drive the vehicle into the cinder block wall to breach it there, because it would be easier, in their opinion, to breach that door. I can't tell you how many people in my law enforcement career, or even today, that I would know and I'd say they would have pulled the trigger. They would have went in there, they wouldn't have waited, but Higgy and Joe knew me enough to listen to my voice, and I was in control enough to where they didn't, and we passed the test. The case was very successful. I will tell you, there's a whole nother side to that 3-year period. I had been going at a pace for 3 years where I'd stopped taking care of myself. I'm a workaholic. So in order to work these cases, I would take my days off. I would be undercover in Oklahoma over the weekend, come back, not take a day off, go right back to work, because I wanted to make my bosses happy in McAllen so I could go do the undercovers and be on SWAT and do all this other stuff I was doing. And it eventually caught up to me. By the time the case was ending, I was a zombie. I was on antihistamines, decongestants. I was taking hydroxycuts after drinking 3 cups of coffee. It's a cocktail for anxiety. And that's what happened to me. I crashed physically and mentally. I probably slept like an average of 16 hours a day for a week, but I bet you the first 2 days I was close to 20 hours. I wasn't depressed or sick. I know what they both feel like. I was just that daggum tired. The case finished with a reversal. I helped set up the deal to get the cars, and then the guy that asked me for that deal, when the undercover truck drivers that were working for me on the case were picking up the vehicles, he pitched them for the 10-kilo deal. They said, yeah, we can get it, and they delivered it to him, and we took it down. Everybody pled guilty, and I don't know if the Taunton chapter ever came back, but it was pretty much defunct after that. Then 2019, we started hearing about the base. So the base was an organization considered accelerationists. They want to accelerate the collapse of society. They don't believe there's a political solution to save the white race. They believe that society is going to collapse on its own or from man-made events, and they want to speed it up. We knew that pretty much the leader was a guy named Ronaldo Nazzaro. His online monikers were Roman Wolf and Norman Spear. And then I would kind of hit them, hey man, I like what you're saying. I train all the time, blah, blah, blah. And then they might like it back. Well, at the end of all their stuff, they're always recruiting. And it said, if you're interested, email thebase_1 at. So I answered it. And that started a series of questions through emails over probably a week or two. And then it got to the point to where, they're asking you your ethnicity, where you live, what's your background, what's your belief system. And I was instructed to download the app called Wire, kind of like a WhatsApp kind of thing. You can do calls on it too. And I think it was July of 2019, I did approximately 1 hour and 15 minutes of an interview. It was basically a panel. I think I remember hearing like 5 different voices, and some of them were really young. But Ronaldo was on there. And I get peppered with questions, and I'm answering them back. About 24 hours later, I got a ping on Wire, and it said, we'd like to have you. We'll hook you up with the cell leader closest to you. The base wanted 3 to 5 man cells all over the world waiting for that call for the Boogaloo. And it turns out that Al-Qaeda, translated to English, is the base. Don't know if that was a coincidence or that's why Ronaldo chose it. I go down to Rome, Georgia, and I meet TMB, the Militant Buddhist, and Pestilence. Now listen, they're pretty squared away, because even though they're young, like 21 and 19, They told me where to go in the town. They told me where to park. They told me to take a picture in the town of Rome, Georgia. There's a Capitoline wolf. It's the Roman wolf statue. They wanted me to take a picture of that and send it to them. So I met the case team right before that. They want to put a tracking device on my truck because, again, we don't know who we're meeting technically. We don't know where we're going. They don't want to lose me. I don't want them to lose me. I go and meet them, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to get checked. I mean, if they're worth anything, they're going to check me out, you know. So they come up. I go, hey, man, how's it going? I go, at that point, I was White Warrior. I changed it to Pale Horse shortly thereafter once I was in the group. He's like, hey, man, put your phone on airplane mode. I need to check you. I said, okay, airplane mode. He pulls out this wand I'd never seen. To me, it looked like some kind of Geiger counter. I mean, it had all kinds of lights and buttons on it and a triangle card. And I'm like, and he's running it all over me. And I'm like, okay, cool. He starts going down the truck. He starts getting to the back of the truck, which is where they had installed a tracking device. And that thing starts going nuts. And I'm like, oh, it picks it up. And turns out that piece of equipment, that kid who doesn't have a job is holding is $500. It's not chump change. And it does detect everything. Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, any signal there is, it'll color code it, make a different sound for it. Right when he's getting to it, I was on a hill, and the power lines were pretty low right there. And Pestilence says, I wonder if it's the power lines. And he said, hang on. And he walks over. I'd already dropped my right leg back because I thought we were getting ready to throw down. I'm like, here we go. He walks over to the power lines, and that machine goes nuts. That detector goes nuts. He's like, man, all right, it's the power lines, follow us. So now I'm following him, and I'm like talking. I don't know who's watching me or what, so I've got like a cup. I got my phone, I'm driving with one hand or my knee, and I'm going, hey, can you guys hear me? And they're like, yeah, and I go, you need to shut the tractor off. They're like, well, we're afraid if we shut it off, we won't be able to cut it back on. And I'm like, well, I'm telling you, if you don't shut it off, it's probably going to be the quickest undercover I've ever done.
By this point, the danger wasn't just personal anymore, it was strategic. What Scott had stepped into wasn't a loose group of angry guys talking online. This was organised, disciplined, and thinking long-term. They trained, they recruited, they planned, and the most unsettling part, some of them were young, but not careless. They knew how to check for wires. They knew how to spot surveillance, and they understood tactics well enough to be dangerous. That's what made this case different. Because when extremists stop just talking, when they start drilling, rehearsing, and preparing, law enforcement doesn't get the luxury of waiting. Now imagine being someone who knows how tactical training is supposed to look, but can't correct mistakes, can't stand out, can't show experience. You have to pretend to be below average, even when being average feels irresponsible. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, agencies across the country are racing the clock. Different cities, different jurisdictions, all trying to piece together the same puzzle, while one person on the ground feeds them reality. This is where undercover work stops being about blending in and starts being about timing. Because if you move too early, the network survives. If you move too late, people get hurt. And the entire operation hangs on one question. How long can you stay inside before the truth comes out?
So we're out there, and it's semi-automatic, AR-15s. And you got to remember, at this time in my career in life, I've been the lead tactic, the principal tactical instructor for the division forever. I've been a firearms instructor. I can't go out there and tell them what they're doing wrong. I can't go out there and make them better. That weekend, a 19-year-old kid led firearms and tactical training, and it was good. As I'm watching, I'm going, if they really wanted to go bad, they're probably going to get the drop on a lot of people because they're doing magazine exchange drills, fast firing drills, speed, accuracy. No, I did not show my what I consider above average marksmanship skills when I was shooting in front of them. I threw some rounds. Terrorism world, if you've got a base member who's predicated and you can open a case on them, but they live in California, well, California, LA's division is going to have to open that case. You got one here in New York, New York's going to have to open that case. So you got all these case teams, and it got to the point to where every Monday was a meeting between like the higher ups, and they blessed me enough to have me on the phone, which was good because I'm the ground level person that can be like, hey, this is what they're doing. And then every Tuesday was a meeting between all the United States attorneys, the assistant United States attorneys and locals. It got pretty big pretty fast. There's a couple of different ways that the base was recruiting. Online was huge, but the accelerationist groups seemed to be really big into what they call stickering or postering or flyering. It would say, save your race, join the base. And there'd be a picture of a swastika and a dude with a military hat on kind of thing. And then it would have a QR code. So you scan that QR code and it takes you right to BitChute to a video, and it's a propaganda recruitment video that the base did. I was in tons of them. We did a lot of filming down in Rome, Georgia for the base. You know, it might be like a voiceover. It might show, it might be some strong heavy metal, black metal song, and it would just show us running and like fighting and shooting. And there's always like a magazine dump at the end where all of us on the line just emptying a mag. And the rule was every recruitment video had to be better than the last one because we want to be better. There's a very powerful recruitment video out there called The Lion of Europe, but you can't pull it up. I mean, you might be able to find it on like maybe a Telegram, but if you try to even put it on a Google Drive or anything, it gets flagged right away. And again, you got to remember, these guys call your mass murderers, your white supremacy mass murderers, they call them saints. They have a leaderboard. The leaderboard shows scores, and then it gets down and it says, what are you going to do to make the board? Saints, a leaderboard. What the hell's wrong with you? Generally, you're going to find somebody that's satanic in that group, and there's groups like Order of Nine Angles, and there's some other ones that are out there that are, I mean, the stuff they spew and write down is pretty horrific. I mean, like mutilation of children and a lot of satanic stuff. So fast forward to Halloween of 2019, we held a hate camp in Georgia. Probably about 13 base members from all over the country came. That Halloween night, they stole a ram from a local property. We went down and held a pagan ritual, which nothing against pagans. I got plenty of friends that are pagans. I mean, I got Viking stuff all over my arm, but they twist it just like Christian identity twists the Bible. So they kidnapped the goat, ram. We sacrificed it at a pagan ritual, drink its blood. A lot of the members do acid. The next day we did training, and then we had another little hate camp where built a fire down there, burnt Bibles, burnt American flags, screaming, F your Jewish God, you know, F America, F Jews, that kind of thing. But after that, I gained enough trust. We uncovered several murder plots that Luke wanted to bring me in on. They had found a couple that they believed were an Antifa couple in a couple of counties away, and they wanted to murder them. Luke had already started making a list of lefty journalists and reporters. And I'm like, so you actually want to start killing people who are in the news and on TV and stuff? And he goes, yeah. And I go, okay, well, it's a good thing. We're going to take a run at this family. It'll be good practice. Meanwhile, the Baltimore, Delaware crew believed that the huge gun rights rally that was going to be happening in January of 2020, their idea was they thought this was going to be the set off of the Boogaloo. They had also started getting really crazy, talking about like breaking out saints from the prison, using that 6.5 Creedmoor with a $6,000 thermal scope to shoot cops at night. The big thing for us was try to make this timeline work and get all the evidence we needed to do an airtight case, which we had good ones going anyway, but you can always like, hey man, if we could find this out kind of thing. I flew to Atlanta on Sunday, drove up to North Georgia, met with those base members to finalize the murder plot. I picked Luke up to take him to lunch. I feigned that my truck had issues and pulled over on the side of the road, got out to work on my truck, and then that's when another truck came over. I started talking to that person. But while that's happening, the SWAT team's coming over the hill in their Bearcat armored vehicle, and I jump in the truck, drive off. They take down Luke without incident. They pick up Pestilence at his house. So by Friday, it's starting to come out. And now I'm in the main chat. I haven't responded. I'm not answering anybody, but like, has anybody seen Pale Horse? Look at this, so-and-so and so-and-so. And it's going and it's going. And it's like, wait a minute. This report says there's a federal agent that infiltrated us. And they're like, who the hell's the Fed in here? And I'm just waiting and I'm waiting. And Nazaro figured it out. He goes, he attended every training, which could be a red flag. I should have picked on something like that. And as soon as he started saying that, I go, oh, he knows it's me. He's figured it out. And somewhere around like 5:15 on a Friday night, it was like, Roman Wolf has removed you. So I screenshotted that and sent it to all the case teams, and I put, and I'm out. And that was it. We took that one down. For me personally, the way I was trained and the choices I made, I always stuck very close to who I am. I mean, it's still me. The jokes are the same. I just may or may not be married, may or may not have kids, may or may not have played college ball, may or may not be a musician and a singer. But, I mean, I probably ride motorcycles and lift weights. Is there a danger staying close to the truth? Again, case by case, subjective, because it could be. If I've got it way too close, like you can figure out that I'm married and my kids and stuff, but I generally felt better and more secure being close to who I am. There's a few rules for undercovers. It really goes for sources too. We can't be involved in an act of violence unless it's in self-defense, right? We can't lead and come up with the criminal idea. You know what I'm saying? That'd be an entrapment issue, right? Let me say this, operational security. You should never have anything personal that ties to you. I mean, of course I'm wearing my personal clothes. What if I went and picked up my coat from the cleaners and it says Scott Payne on it? And now I'm undercover and somebody grabs my jacket and you know me as Tech Scott Calloway, and now you see Scott Payne in the jacket. So you gotta be totally clean. One of the things I would do to kind of get and roll for almost all my cases is I take the cross off. I take my cross off my necklace and I put a skull on. When I got home, I'd switch them back.
This might be tradecraft. How would you ever alert your cover team if you were in trouble?
It's not tradecraft. It gets kind of funny because you go and you meet case teams and case agents all over the country, and if you've been in there and you're getting along in the tooth working undercovers and stuff, and it's always like, hey, what do you want? What's your code word? What's your safety word? And I'm like, how about this? If I yell help multiple times in a row, that's my code word. And I get it. Do you want to set them off or not? But I've been on, especially at the narc level, that I got so much experience. You say, okay, your physical signal is going to be, you're going to take your hat off, you're going to tap your head and put the hat back on. Person's never done it, their baseline's never done it, but for whatever reason, subconsciously it's in there and they don't even realize they do it. They're talking to the bad guy, they take their hat off, tap their head and put it back on. It wasn't time for the signal. They did it by accident. Now my go word, we could come up with something like, if you want a word where, for me to let the team know I got the evidence, like for something quicker, maybe we're doing crimes against children, we're ordering escorts or whatever, and once I get that money in exchange for sex thing, I can come up with something, bathroom, something simple. But yeah, I always tried to keep it simple. Operation Poetic Justice was a public corruption undercover operation. And it took place, I want to say around like 2009 to 2011. The FBI is looking for systemic public corruption, which means more than just one person, generally speaking. And that was the reporting. And it had been reported for years and years, but nothing was found. And so I went in and tried to infiltrate, ingratiate, get to know people. I was relatively new to the Tennessee area that we were in. That was right when the big opioid crisis was happening. I went in there to try to give me something, some kind of something to be a little dirty. And I came in with purported stolen cigarettes, and those things went like hotcakes. Because out there in the rural Tennessee area, they had no problem getting their opioids, but man, they did not like paying that much money for cigarettes. So once that happened, I was like, oh, this is our end. And I started bringing in reportedly stolen cigarettes and selling them, and I was selling for $20 a carton, and they would give me like 2 Oxy 80s, which were going for $1 a milligram. So they just gave me $160 worth of drugs for the $20 carton. And then we started trying to wrap in some local law enforcement, and we did good. We got a constable who was dirty. We got a guy that was a reserve who became a cop while I was in that case. There are a few things a good cop hates worse than a bad cop. Don't tarnish the badge. I mean, dadgummit. We did get the constable on some dope charges. We got the cop, and he was still buying stolen cigarettes from me. I mean, I'd seen him do cocaine and stuff, which is just heart-wrenching when you're a cop. When you are blue, you took the same oath I did. What the hell's wrong with you, But we got him. because he was buying what he thought were stolen iPads and stuff from me, TVs and stuff like that. But most of the charges were drugs, just from the pills and the cocaine. And we did like 51 indictments, but most of them went state. That was a 1.5 year case. I kind of broke my own rule, don't underestimate. Earlier I talked about you need to be able to tell when a situation's deteriorating and not stay in it if you can get out. Early on in the case, I'm at this trailer of Mike and Sherry, and there's other people there. And I guess I wasn't paying attention. All of a sudden everybody's gone, and it's just me, Mike, and Sherry. And what I'd done is to validate my knowledge about drugs. I had picked up some cocaine the previous trip there, and I bitched about it, as a good drug dealer would do. You know, I'm like, that wasn't worth it. It was stepped on, because I knew the purity of it. I go, that wasn't nothing. Well, that was Mike's end. He goes, well, not my stuff. Try this. You're talking to a mountain man with no teeth in his head, who drinks all day, does cocaine and pills all day. Good guy that I could bond with when he was good, but when he was bad, he was bad. I mean, he would just go off. Hard to trust, hard to be around kind of thing. Violent. It's a chess game, right? You're always trying to think of the next move. I missed it. Now I'm sitting on a couch, leaning backwards. I got a red bone hound in my crotch, growling. Mean dog. Growling, teeth showing. I'm leaning back as far as I can on the couch. There's an open bag of cocaine in my face, and he's going, do it. Do it. If you're not a cop, do it. If I find out you're the law, you're a dead man. You hear me? He also had a short barrel, double barrel, 20 gauge shotgun with a hammer's cocked back sitting right next to him. What was going through my head immediately was, you idiot. Like, I can't believe I let my guard down and now I'm in this position. And I'm like, I'm not doing it. I mean, I've told you, man, I got heart issues. I used to do tons of it. I was a power lifter. I ain't doing that shit no more. Well, then he's like, well, Sherry's on the rescue squad. So-and-so on the squad's had heart attacks. He's got a bad heart. He did this morning. He's fine. And I'm thinking, well, that's great. But eventually what happened was, he said, well, just taste it. Just taste it. And he wasn't backing away. Clearly the situation's deteriorating. I did a sleight of hand move, and I faked the taste test. I did not stick it in my mouth, and it was fine after that. Don't want to give away tradecraft, right? But you don't do dope. Now, if your life's in danger, yeah, I'll do the dope. And then I need to tell the case team, and I need to tell the United States Attorney's Office, and I need to get to an emergency room and let them know that I've ingested a drug to make sure I'm not going to OD, especially today. I mean, look at the day with fentanyl and everything. Hell, you can touch that and die.
By the time cases like this end, the danger doesn't just disappear, it lingers. Because going undercover isn't just about fooling other people. It's about slowly convincing yourself to live as someone else. You carry their language, their routines, their hatred. And even when the operation is over, your body doesn't always get the memo. The exhaustion hits first, then the silence. Then the realization that while the mission succeeded, something inside you paid the price. What most people never see is that undercover work doesn't end with handcuffs. It ends when the adrenaline finally drains, and you're left alone with everything you absorbed to keep others safe. There are no victory laps, no clean endings. Just the quiet understanding that stopping violence before it happens often means standing close enough to feel its heat. And yet, without people willing to step into that darkness, plots don't get disrupted, networks don't collapse, and lives don't get spared. That's the unseen cost and the uncomfortable necessity. Stories like this ask a difficult question. How far would you be willing to go to stop something terrible before it happens? Because undercover agents don't just enforce the law, they absorb chaos so it doesn't spill outward. They live without certainty. They make decisions with incomplete information. And sometimes they survive situations where survival wasn't guaranteed. Scott Payne's story isn't about bravery in the movie sense. It's about discipline, patience, and the mental strength to stay controlled when everything inside you is screaming to react. Cases like these quietly reshape the country. Not through headlines, but through disasters that never happen. And when it works, you'll never know how close things came. That's the paradox of undercover work. When it's done right, the impact is invisible, but the sacrifice is permanent. If this story changed the way you think about undercover operations, or made you realize how much happens beyond what we ever see, take a moment to support the channel. Like the video if you found it insightful. Subscribe if you want more real stories from inside high-stakes worlds like this one. And let us know in the comments what part of this story stayed with you the most. Because the truth is, the most important battles are often the ones fought quietly by people you'll never meet, in places you'll never see. And sometimes, the only reason you're safe is because someone else was willing to walk in alone. See you in the next one.